I'm a Chinese native and American citizen. I love my birth country, China, and also love my adopted country, America. Why these two countries cannot get along? Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, today I'd like to tell you a story of my personal struggle to seek my identity and how that struggle led me to a realization that Earth is but one country and mankind is citizens. After I came to this country about 20 years ago, I decided to change my name from Helen to Helen. Like many immigrants in this country, I wanted to have an English name and desired to fit into mainstream American society. Although people told me my Chinese name sounded pretty, but I felt it was too Chinese for me. The name Helen felt suitable because it has the same first letter, H. And I like the story of Helen Keller. With my new English name, I was determined to become Helen Wang, the American. Now, in California, you almost don't need to understand any English in order to live a perfect American life. There's a Chinese TV, restaurant, grocery stores, and everything. But I wanted to be as American as I could. I stopped reading any Chinese newspapers and magazines and surrounded myself with friends from different ethnic backgrounds. And I was really trying hard to adapt to American society. Once at a social event, I introduced myself as Helen, as usual. And a woman looked at me intriguingly and said, "Come on, what's your real name?" I'm sure she meant no harm, but I was offended. Don't you see I'm American already? But the woman's question made me think who I really am. I'm a Chinese by ethnic background, an American by citizenship. But sometimes I do not identify myself as either. Despite the fact I have spent so many years trying to be an American, I still feel I cannot entirely fit into American mainstream. On the other hand, people in China do not think I'm Chinese enough. It struck me really hard when I realized I didn't belong to anywhere. And that was painful and confusing. It took me years of soul searching before I realized whether we are Chinese or American, we are all one human race, like leaves of one tree and waves of one ocean. And because I have straddled two cultures, I can see that the differences between the East and the West are more complementary rather than contradictory. So in my book, The Chinese Dream, I offer a new perspective, the oneness of the world. Now, by oneness, I mean diversities among the different parties that are seemingly contradictory to each other, but in reality, they balance and complete each other, and ultimately create a unity. For example, the Chinese economy is heavily dependent on exports and investment. Many Chinese save a big chunk of their incomes for the rainy day. On the other hand, Americans have spent beyond our means for decades. We know that the American economy is imbalanced with overconsumption. The Chinese economy is also imbalanced, but with the opposite problem, oversaving. Both Chinese and American economy needs to rebalance, and this process has already begun. The Chinese middle class is creating enormous opportunities for American companies selling into China. And as this process unfolds, the Chinese economy will be able to rebalance from overseeing, and the American economy will be able to rebalance from overconsumption. And when major economies, such as United States and China, with opposite strengths and weaknesses, can rectify and fortify each other, the world will be able to thrive on the virtuous cycle of globalization. And this is what I mean by oneness of the world. I love China because China is the country where I was born and grew up, the country where I have blood connections, and the country that has made me who I am. But whenever I'm in China, I found that I love America more than ever, because America is the country where I have found my dreams, the country that gives me a new spirit, and the country that has made me more than who I am. I believe the world is one, and the world's stability and prosperity will depend on how well China and the West understand each other, trust each other, and learn from each other. So I invite each one of you, in whatever endeavor and capacity, to make a difference by becoming a bridge between China and the West, because the world's stability and prosperity depend on it. Mr. Toastmaster.